In the winter of 1988, in a quiet neighborhood of Ayase, Tokyo, life went on as usual. Neighbors walked their dogs, parents cooked dinner, and police patrolled the streets. But inside one ordinary suburban family home, a nightmare was unfolding in plain sight. For 44 days, a 17-year-old high school student named Junko Furuta was held captive. Dozens of people, including teenagers, gang members, and even parents, knew she was there. Yet, nobody stopped it. How does a teenager vanish in one of the safest cities in the world, only to be kept in a suburban bedroom for over a month without anyone speaking up? This is not just the story of a tragedy. This is an investigation into how a community, a family, and an entire legal system failed to save a life. November 25, 1988. 17-year-old Junko Furuta was a top student at her high school in Saitama. She had a bright future, a loving family, and was recently preparing to start a part-time job. As she rode her bicycle home from school that evening, she was targeted by a group of 4 teenage boys. The leader of the group was a 17-year-old with ties to local organized crime. In a calculated move, one of the boys kicked her off her bicycle. The leader then pretended to be an innocent bystander, offering to help her up and walk her home to safety. It was a trap. Instead of safety, they forced her into a park, threatened her, and took her to a house in nearby Ayase, Tokyo. This house belonged to the parents of one of the boys. To keep her from screaming or trying to escape, the boys used severe psychological coercion. They told her they had ties to the Yakuza and that if she tried to run, they would hunt down and harm her family. Terrified and isolated, Junko was trapped. What makes this case deeply unsettling is how many opportunities there were to save her. Under immense pressure, the boys forced Junko to call her mother. She was made to say she had run away from home to stay with a friend and that the police should not be contacted. Believing her daughter's voice, her mother temporarily delayed a full-scale search. But inside the house in Ayase, Junko was kept in a second-floor bedroom. The parents of the boy who owned the house actually lived there. They saw Junko. But because the boys were highly aggressive, intimidating, and associated with local delinquents, the parents chose not to intervene out of fear of their own son. They remained silent. Over the next month, more teenagers were invited to the house. It is estimated that up to 100 people either visited the room, knew she was being held there, or heard rumors. Yet, due to a toxic mixture of peer pressure, fear of the gang leader, and bystander apathy, not a single person dialed the police. By late December, Junko's physical condition was rapidly deteriorating. She was severely malnourished, dehydrated, and suffering from continuous, horrific physical abuse. On January 4th, 1989, after 44 days of unimaginable suffering, Junko Furuta succumbed to her injuries. She was just 17 years old. Panicking, the boys wrapped her body, placed it inside a 55-gallon oil drum, and filled it with concrete. They transported the drum to a reclamation site in Koto, Tokyo, believing they had covered their tracks forever. But their silence didn't last. Months later, the boys were arrested on unrelated charges. During the interrogation, the police began asking questions about missing persons in the area. Under pressure, one of the younger boys cracked. He confessed to the entire 44-day timeline and led the police to the concrete drum. When the details of the 44 days were made public, Japan was shaken to its core. But the outrage only intensified when the verdicts were delivered. Because the perpetrators were minors under Japanese law, they could not be sentenced to death. The leader received only 17 years, while the others received even lighter sentences, ranging from 5 to 10 years. But this is where the story takes a turn that most coverages of this case completely ignore. Because they were juveniles, the perpetrators were eventually released back into society under brand new identities to protect their privacy. But the system's hope for rehabilitation failed. Years after their release under their new names, multiple members of this original group were arrested yet again for committing new violent crimes, including assault, kidnapping, and attempted murder. For the public, this was the ultimate proof that the leniency of the justice system had backfired, showing that the danger they posed to society had never truly faded. The tragedy of Junko Furuta forced Japan to completely reevaluate its juvenile law and how the justice system treats young offenders. But more than that, it stands as a haunting monument to what happens when fear, apathy, and silence win. Due to the extreme and deeply sensitive nature of this crime, there are many critical details and aspects of the official records that I simply couldn't air here on YouTube. If you are deeply interested in the case, I highly encourage you to go and read the actual investigative reports and court documentation yourself. How do you think the system should have handled this? Let me know in the comments below and subscribe for more deep dive investigations. Thank you for watching.